Captain Zekthor adjusted his scanner and frowned at the readings. Something was wrong with the third planet in this yellow star system. The data didn't match what the Galactic Council's files said about Sol 3. "Are you sure these are the right coordinates?" he asked his navigation officer, a thin Krelian with silver skin. "Yes, Captain. This is definitely the Sol system. The star signature matches perfectly." Zekthor looked at his scanner again. According to Council records, Sol 3 should be home to a primitive species called humans. The last survey, done 200 years ago, showed they were still using basic metals and had barely learned to fly. The Council had marked them as low priority for future contact. But the scanner was showing something very different now. "Take us into orbit," Zekthor ordered. "I want a full scan of the planet's surface." The survey ship moved closer to the blue and green world. As they got nearer, the readings became even more confusing. The scanner showed massive structures on the surface, but no life signs. No movement. No energy signatures from active technology. "Captain," said the science officer, "I'm reading extensive industrial development across multiple continents, but everything appears to be abandoned. Abandoned? Define abandoned. The structures are intact, but there's no activity, no power generation, no communications. It's like everyone just left." Zekthor felt a chill run through his scales. In his 30 years of surveying worlds for the Council, he had never seen anything like this. Species didn't just disappear. "Send down a probe team," he ordered. "I want detailed scans of the largest population centers." 3 hours later, the probes returned data that made the entire bridge crew fall silent. The images showed vast cities with buildings reaching toward the sky, roads that stretched for thousands of kilometers, ports that could handle massive ships, but everything was empty. "Look at this," the science officer said, displaying an image on the main screen. "This appears to be some kind of launch facility. But the size, Captain, this could handle ships larger than our entire vessel." Zekthor studied the image. The launch pad was enormous, with scorch marks showing recent use. But what worried him more were the buildings around it. They showed architectural knowledge and engineering skills far beyond what a primitive species should possess. "How recent is recent?" he asked. "Based on the atmospheric decay of the scorch patterns, I'd estimate 50 to 60 years ago." 60 years? Zekthor's voice rose. The last Council survey was 200 years ago. What happened in the time between? More probes landed in different locations around the planet. Each one sent back the same story. Advanced cities empty, complex transportation networks unused, industrial facilities that could produce materials the Council itself used but all shut down. The science officer worked frantically at his station. "Captain, I'm finding traces of various technologies embedded in their infrastructure. Some of it appears to be based on principles we use ourselves. That's impossible. These humans were barely out of their Stone Age 2 centuries ago. Sir, I'm also detecting residual radiation signatures that suggest they achieved nuclear technology and then moved beyond it. There are traces of energy patterns I don't recognize." Zekthor walked to the main viewer and stared at the planet below. A terrible thought was forming in his mind. "Officer Klenn," he called to his communication specialist, "send a message to Council Command. High priority. Tell them we need immediate access to all surveillance data for this sector over the past 100 years. "Yes, Captain." While they waited for the reply, more probe data came in. The humans had left behind clear evidence of their technological advancement. Manufacturing facilities that could produce advanced alloys. Computer systems that, while shut down, showed processing capabilities that rivaled Council technology. And everywhere signs that they had left in an organized, planned manner. "Captain," said the science officer, "I found something you need to see." The main screen displayed images from what appeared to be a government building. Inside, the probes had found rooms filled with star charts. But these weren't simple maps of their local system. These charts showed detailed knowledge of the galaxy, including sectors the Council considered highly classified. "How did they get this information?" Zekthor whispered. "Sir, there's more. I'm finding evidence of long-range communication equipment. Very sophisticated. And based on the power usage patterns in these facilities, it was operational for decades before they left." The reply from Council Command arrived an hour later. When Zekthor read it, his blood went cold. "What does it say?" asked the navigation officer. Zekthor looked up at his crew. "Council Command confirms unusual electromagnetic activity from this sector over the past 80 years. They attributed it to natural stellar phenomena and never investigated electromagnetic activity. The humans were listening, Zekthor said quietly. They were monitoring our communications. They knew about the council long before we planned to contact them. The science officer pulled up more data on his screen. Captain, if they were monitoring our communications, they would have learned about our protocols for primitive species contact. Everyone on the bridge knew what those protocols meant. When the council found a developing species, they made contact and offered membership. But membership came with strict rules. The new species had to accept council authority. They had to limit their technology to approved levels. They had to allow council oversight of their development. And if they refused, "Sir," the communications officer interrupted, "I'm getting reports from other survey teams throughout this sector. 3 more systems that should have primitive species show similar abandonment patterns." Zekthor felt his heart racing. How many? At least 12 species have disappeared from their homeworlds in the past century. All of them were classified as primitive or pre-contact. The implications hit the bridge crew like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just left their world. They had somehow organized a mass exodus of multiple species that should have been centuries away from space travel. "Captain," the science officer said, his voice shaking, "I've been analyzing the launch facility data. Based on the number of launches and the size of the ships, I estimate they evacuated the entire population of the planet. Billions of individuals. In 60 years? No, sir. Based on the pattern analysis, most of the population left in the final 10 years. But the infrastructure suggests they spent 50 years preparing." Zekthor sank into his command chair. The humans had known the council was coming. They had spent decades preparing for contact they didn't want. And somehow they had developed technology advanced enough to evacuate their entire species and help others do the same. "Sir, what are our orders?" Zekthor looked at the empty planet on his screen. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were living in space with technology that might rival or exceed the Council's own, and they had made it clear they didn't want Council contact. "Send a priority message to Command," he said finally. "Inform them that Species File Sol 3 Human requires immediate reclassification. Status change from primitive pre-contact to advanced hostile potential." "Sir, should we attempt to track their departure vectors?" Zekthor thought about the massive ships that must have launched from the planet below. Ships carrying an entire civilization that had chosen exile over council membership. "No," he said. "I think we might not want to find them." High Counselor Veltar stared at the reports covering her desk. In her 4 centuries of service to the Galactic Council, she had never seen anything like this. 23 different survey teams had filed similar reports over the past month. Empty worlds, missing species, advanced technology left behind. All of them had one thing in common: humans. "Bring me Admiral Korth," she ordered her aide, "and summon the Emergency Session Committee. We have a crisis." The council chamber filled quickly as word spread through the massive station orbiting the council homeworld. Representatives from 300 species took their seats, their various forms creating a sea of colors and shapes under the bright lights. Admiral Korth entered last, his heavy footsteps echoing in the chamber. The old warrior's face was grim as he approached the central platform. "Begin the briefing," Veltar announced to the assembled delegates. Korth activated the holographic display above the platform. A 3-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with thousands of colored dots marking known worlds and species. "Over the past standard month," Korth began, "our survey teams have discovered that 23 species previously classified as primitive have vanished from their homeworlds." A murmur ran through the chamber. Several delegates leaned forward in their seats. These species had estimated technological development, times ranging from 50 to 500 years before they would achieve spaceflight. Korth continued. Yet all of them appear to have achieved not only spaceflight, but complete planetary evacuation. "That's impossible," interrupted Counselor Dresk, a tall insectoid representative. "Primitive species don't have the industrial capacity for such undertakings." "Apparently they do now," Korth replied. He manipulated the display, and red dots began appearing throughout one section of the galaxy. Each of these worlds shows evidence of massive industrial expansion in the decades before evacuation. Infrastructure that could support populations in the billions. Veltar rose from her seat. "Admiral, what connects these vanished species?" Communication intercepts suggest they were all contacted by the same group, humans from the Sol system. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. Veltar called for order. "Continue," she said. Korth changed the display again. Now it showed communication patterns spreading across space like a web. "We've detected long-range transmissions between these worlds over the past 80 years. The patterns suggest a coordinated information network spanning multiple sectors." "Information about what?" asked another delegate. "About us," Korth said simply. Silence fell over the chamber. "Our intelligence division has analyzed the communication patterns. The humans appear to have been monitoring our transmissions for decades. They shared this information with other species we had scheduled for contact." Counselor Dresk stood up. "Are you saying these primitives have been spying on the Council?" "Not just spying," Korth replied. "Planning. Based on the evacuation patterns and infrastructure development, this was a coordinated effort spanning multiple generations." Veltar felt a chill run through her. "How many beings are we talking about, Admiral?" Korth hesitated before answering. "Conservative estimates suggest over 1 trillion individuals across all species involved." The number hit the chamber like a physical blow. Delegates began talking among themselves in urgent whispers. "Where did they go?" Veltar asked. "Unknown. The evacuation fleets left no clear trail. Our best analysis suggests they scattered in multiple directions, heading for unexplored regions beyond our current territory." Counselor Trevin, an elder from one of the founding species, raised a tentacle. "What threat assessment do we assign to these missing populations?" "That's the problem," Korth admitted. "We don't know their current capabilities, but evidence from their homeworld suggests technological advancement far beyond our projections." "Explain." "The humans left behind manufacturing facilities that could produce materials we consider restricted technology. Their computing systems, while inactive, show processing capabilities that match our own military-grade equipment." Veltar's mind raced through the implications. How did primitives develop such technology? "They learned from us," said a new voice from the chamber entrance. Everyone turned to see Intelligence Director Quental walking toward the platform. The tall, gray-skinned operative rarely appeared in public sessions. "Director," Veltar acknowledged. "You have additional information?" "We've been monitoring the situation for some time," Quental said, taking position next to Admiral Korth. "Our analysis suggests the humans reverse-engineered technology from intercepted Council transmissions. They've had decades to study our methods and develop countermeasures." "Countermeasures?" Admiral Korth's voice was sharp. "They know our contact protocols. They know our military capabilities. They know our expansion patterns." Quental paused. "They've been preparing for war." The chamber fell completely silent. "War?" Veltar repeated. "From their perspective, yes. They studied our historical approach to primitive species. They understood that Council membership meant submission to our authority. So they chose to leave rather than submit." Counselor Dresk's mandibles clicked angrily. "Then we find them and bring them back. No species leaves Council authority without permission." "That may be problematic," Quental said quietly. "Why?" "Because they're not hiding. They're expanding." The display changed again, showing new data points in unexplored regions of space. "Our long-range sensors have detected industrial activity in 17 previously unknown systems. The energy signatures match what we found on the abandoned homeworlds." Admiral Korth studied the new information. "They're building colonies. More than that. They're building infrastructure, shipyards, communication networks, and they're doing it in regions we considered unsuitable for colonization." "Unsuitable how?" Veltar asked. "High radiation, unstable stellar regions, asteroid fields too dense for safe navigation. They're settling places we never bothered to explore because the costs outweighed the benefits." Counselor Trevin's tentacles writhed with agitation. "Are you suggesting they have better technology than us?" "I'm suggesting they're using different technology than us," Quental corrected. "Approaches we never considered because we had no need to push into hostile environments." Veltar sank back into her chair. The situation was far worse than she had initially thought. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" "Immediate military deployment," Korth said without hesitation. "We send battle fleets to these new colonies and demand they return to Council authority." "I advise against that approach," Quental interrupted. "Why?" "Because we don't know what we're facing. They've had 80 years to prepare for this moment. They chose the time and place of this confrontation, not us. They're still primitives, Admiral Korth argued. Advanced primitives, perhaps, but primitives nonetheless. Council military technology is proven against countless species, all of whom fought us on our terms, Quental replied. The humans appear to be playing by different rules. Veltar looked between the two officers. What different rules? They don't want to conquer us. They just want us to leave them alone. That makes them unpredictable. We don't know how far they're willing to go to maintain their independence. Then what do you suggest? She asked, caution. We send a small diplomatic mission to establish contact. We learn what they want and what they're capable of before we make any military decisions. Admiral Korth's expression was skeptical. And if they refuse diplomatic contact, then we learn something very important about their intentions, Quental said. And we plan accordingly. Veltar looked out at the assembled delegates. Fear and uncertainty filled the chamber. For the first time in Council history, they were facing a problem they couldn't solve with superior numbers and established protocols. I'll take recommendations under advisement, she announced. This session is adjourned. As the delegates filed out, Veltar remained in her seat, staring at the display showing the scattered red dots representing human colonies. Somewhere out there, 1 trillion beings were building a new civilization beyond Council reach. And for the first time in her long life, she wasn't sure the Council could stop them. Captain Zurek commanded the lead ship in the Council's first contact fleet as they approached the human colony world designated HC-7 by their intelligence division. 3 heavy cruisers and 6 support vessels made up the diplomatic mission, though Admiral Korth had insisted on enough firepower to encourage cooperation. Bring us to standard orbit, Zurek ordered. Begin standard contact protocols. The planet below looked nothing like what he expected from a refugee colony. Instead of temporary settlements and basic infrastructure, his sensors showed a thriving world with cities that sparkled like jewels across multiple continents. Orbital installations ringed the planet, clearly designed for both commerce and defense. Sir, his communications officer reported, I'm receiving a transmission. They're using standard Council diplomatic frequencies. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human female in what appeared to be a formal uniform. She looked young by human standards, but her eyes held a confidence that made Zurek uneasy. Welcome to New Geneva, she said in perfect Council standard. I'm Director Sarah Chen of the Colonial Administration. We've been expecting you. Zurek blinked in surprise. Council intelligence had suggested the humans might be developing faster than light communication, but this level of preparation was unexpected. I am Captain Zurek of the Galactic Council First Contact Division. We're here to establish formal relations and discuss your species' integration into the galactic community. Director Chen smiled politely. That's very kind of you, Captain. However, I should inform you that humanity already has formal representation in galactic affairs. We've established the Terran Cooperative Alliance with several other species. Alliance. Zurek felt his confidence faltering. I'm afraid there's been some misunderstanding. The Galactic Council is the only recognized authority for interstellar governance. All species must go through proper integration protocols. I understand that's your position, Chen replied diplomatically. Unfortunately, the Terran Cooperative Alliance has voted to decline Council membership at this time. We appreciate the offer, but we prefer to maintain our independence. Decline? Zurek exchanged glances with his first officer. No species had ever declined Council membership. Director Chen, I don't think you understand the benefits of Council membership. Protection, trade opportunities, technological advancement, cultural exchange. Captain, we're quite aware of the benefits. We're also aware of the requirements. Mandatory technology restrictions, cultural oversight, economic integration under Council terms, and surrender of sovereignty over colonial expansion. Chen's expression remained pleasant but firm. These terms are unacceptable to our member species. Zurek felt sweat beading on his forehead. This wasn't going according to any protocol he knew. Director, perhaps you'd like to discuss this in person? I could arrange transport for a diplomatic party to visit our ship. That won't be necessary. We've prepared a comprehensive response to the Council's offer. Chen gestured to someone off-screen. I'm transmitting our formal position now. Data began flowing into the ship's communications array. As Zurek's information officer analyzed it, his expression grew increasingly troubled. Sir, the officer whispered, this is a complete legal document. Formal diplomatic language, precedent citations, alternative proposals for trade agreements and non-interference pacts. This isn't a primitive colony response. This is professional diplomatic work. On screen, Director Chen continued speaking. As you'll see in our response, the Terran Cooperative Alliance is prepared to establish peaceful relations with the Galactic Council as an independent entity. We're open to trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and mutual defense pacts. However, we will not accept Council authority over our internal affairs. Zurek felt the situation slipping away from him. Director, I'm afraid the Council doesn't recognize independent governments. The galaxy is governed by Council law, and all species must comply. I understand that's been your experience, Chen said. But times change. The galaxy is a large place, Captain. Large enough for multiple approaches to civilization. Director, you're making a serious mistake. The Council has resources and capabilities far beyond what your colony worlds can match. I strongly recommend you reconsider this position. For the first time, Chen's smile faded slightly. Captain, are you threatening us? I'm stating facts. The Council maintains order through strength when necessary. It would be unfortunate if misunderstandings led to conflict. I see. Chen paused, appearing to listen to someone off-screen. Captain, I'm going to patch you through to Admiral Martinez. He handles our security concerns. The screen flickered and a new human appeared. This one was older, with gray hair and scars across his face. His expression was much less diplomatic than Chen's had been. Captain Zurek, the Admiral said without preamble, I understand you're considering military action against our colonies. Admiral, we prefer diplomatic solutions, but the Council cannot allow independent governments to operate in violation of galactic law. Galactic law according to who? Martinez asked. We never signed your treaties, Captain. We never agreed to your authority. And we certainly never gave you permission to enter our space and make demands. Zurek felt his anger rising. This entire sector is under Council jurisdiction. Was under Council jurisdiction, Martinez corrected. Our survey teams have found over 400 unclaimed systems in this region. We've legally colonized 17 of them according to standard interstellar settlement protocols. Check your own law books. You can't simply ignore Council authority. Martinez leaned forward and his expression became dangerous. Captain, let me be very clear. The Terran Cooperative Alliance claims no territory that belongs to the Council. We make no demands on Council worlds. We threaten no Council interests. But we will defend our own territory and our own people. Defend with what? Your species barely achieved spaceflight 60 years ago. Martinez smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. Captain, I'm going to show you something. Consider it a gesture of good faith. The screen split, showing the Admiral on one side and what appeared to be a tactical display on the other. Zurek stared at it for a moment before realizing what he was seeing. Those are our ships, he whispered. Every vessel in your fleet, Martinez confirmed. Precise positions, shield configurations, weapon loadouts, crew complements. We've been tracking you since you entered our sensor network 2 days ago. Zurek's tactical officer was frantically checking his own displays. Sir, I'm not detecting any scanning beams or sensor pings. How are they getting this information? Trade secret, Martinez said, having overheard. But I will tell you this. We know exactly how many rounds your main guns carry, how long your shields can hold under sustained fire, and which of your ships has engine problems. The determination has been running efficiency checks. Zurek's engineer confirmed quietly. But how could they possibly know that? Gentlemen, Martinez continued, the Terran Cooperative Alliance has no desire for conflict with the Council. But we will not be bullied, and we will not surrender our independence. I suggest you return to your superiors with our diplomatic proposal, and let wiser heads than ours work out the details. Zurek felt his world shifting. Everything about this encounter was wrong. The humans were supposed to be awed by Council technology, grateful for contact, eager to join galactic civilization. Instead, they were treating the Council as just another government that happened to live nearby. What if the Council decides to enforce its authority? He asked. Martinez's expression became genuinely sad. Then we'll defend ourselves, Captain. And that would be tragic for everyone involved. You cannot fight the Council. We have thousands of ships, billions of soldiers, resources beyond counting. And we have something you don't. Martinez replied quietly. What's that? Home field advantage. You'll be fighting us in our space with our rules using technology you don't understand against tactics you've never encountered. Martinez paused. Captain, The Council is very good at fighting conventional wars against conventional enemies. We're not conventional. Zurek stared at the human admiral, finally understanding the magnitude of what they were facing. This wasn't first contact with a primitive species. This was a diplomatic crisis with a foreign power. I'll relay your message to the Council, he said finally. Thank you, Captain. Safe journey home. The transmission ended, leaving Zurek staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew worked in nervous silence. Sir, his first officer asked quietly. What are our orders? Zurek looked at the planet below, with its impossible cities and orbital defenses that could apparently see through Council stealth technology. Set course for Council space, he said. Best possible speed. Sir, shouldn't we gather more intelligence on their capabilities? Zurek thought about Admiral Martinez's confident smile and the tactical data they somehow possessed about ships that should have been invisible to their sensors. I think we have all the intelligence we can handle, he replied. Intelligence Director Quental stood before the Council's emergency session, with data cores captured from the human colony world. The raid had cost them 3 ships and 47 crew members, but they finally had answers about how the humans had advanced so quickly. What you're about to see, Quental announced to the assembled delegates, will change how we understand this crisis. The holographic display activated, showing decoded files from the human computer systems. Text scrolled across the screen in multiple languages, including perfect Council standard. This is from something called the Prometheus Archive, Quental explained. It contains 80 years of intercepted Council communications, technical specifications, cultural studies, and strategic analysis. High Counselor Veltar leaned forward in her seat. How much of our communication did they intercept? All of it, Quental said simply. Military frequencies, diplomatic channels, scientific research networks, even internal Council administrative traffic. They've been listening to everything we've said for nearly a century. The chamber filled with shocked voices. Quental continued his presentation. The archive shows the humans began monitoring our communications in 2157, shortly after achieving radio technology. They discovered us by accident while searching for natural radio sources in space. Counselor Dresk clicked his mandibles nervously. What did they learn from these intercepts? Everything. Our contact protocols, our integration requirements, our treatment of non-compliant species. Quental paused. They know about the Cathari compliance war. They know about the forced relocation of the Zephyrians. They know about every species that refused Council membership and what happened to them. Silence fell over the chamber. The Council's history with resistant species was not something they discussed in public forums. Continue, Veltar ordered. The display changed, showing technical diagrams and scientific formulas. The humans reverse-engineered our technology from the technical data in our transmissions. But they didn't just copy it. They improved it. Improved how? Admiral Korth demanded. They solved problems we never knew we had. Our faster-than-light communication system has a theoretical maximum range of 1,200 light-years. The humans extended it to over 3,000. Our shield technology has a known vulnerability to quantum resonance weapons. They eliminated that weakness. That's impossible, protested Chief Science Officer Melak. Those are fundamental physical limitations. According to our understanding, yes. But the humans approached the problems differently. They used what we call the creativity principle. Explain. Instead of accepting established solutions, they asked what-if questions. What if we used multiple communication frequencies simultaneously? What if we layered shield generators at different dimensional phases? What if we designed ships to use environmental hazards as advantages instead of obstacles? The display showed images of human ship designs. They looked nothing like Council vessels. Where Council ships were sleek and uniform, these were angular and asymmetric, with components that seemed to violate basic engineering principles. These ships are designed for combat in environments we consider uninhabitable, Quental continued. Asteroid fields, radiation storms, gravitational anomalies. They use chaos as a weapon. Admiral Korth studied the designs with growing unease. What's their combat capability assessment? Unknown, but concerning. Their defensive systems appear designed specifically to counter Council weapons and tactics. Designed how? They know exactly how our weapons work, because they've been analyzing our technical transmissions for decades. Their shields are tuned to absorb our energy frequencies and redirect them. Their armor is designed to scatter our projectile weapons. Their jamming systems target our specific communication protocols. The implications hit the military officers like a physical blow. An enemy that knew all their capabilities and had designed countermeasures was every strategist's nightmare. How many ships do they have? Korth asked. The archive suggests they built evacuation fleets capable of moving over 1 trillion beings across multiple species. Even accounting for transport efficiency, we're looking at tens of thousands of vessels minimum. And now? Unknown. But their industrial capacity appears to be expanding exponentially. They're building shipyards and systems we consider worthless using resources we never bothered to exploit. Veltar stood up slowly. Director, you said they've been listening to our communications for 80 years. What triggered their mass evacuation 50 years ago? Quental hesitated before answering. The Canterbury Incident. The chamber fell completely silent. The Canterbury Incident was classified at the highest levels. Explain, Veltar said quietly. The humans intercepted our military planning transmissions regarding the Canterbury system. They learned we were planning to forcibly relocate the Yethkari population to make room for a council mining operation. The Yethkari were a primitive species, Admiral Korth said defensively. The relocation was for their own good. The humans disagreed. They also realized that if we would forcibly relocate one primitive species, we would do it to others, including them. So they ran, Counselor Dresk observed. No, Quental corrected. They planned. The archive shows detailed contingency plans developed over 30 years. Evacuation routes, resource stockpiling, technology development, alliance building. They didn't just run. They executed a strategic withdrawal. The display changed again, showing communication logs between multiple species. The humans contacted 22 other species scheduled for future council integration. They shared intelligence about our methods and offered alternatives. Alternatives. Independent development. Mutual defense pacts. Technology sharing without political submission. They offered these species something we never did. Choice. Veltar felt a cold realization settling over her. How many species accepted their offer? Based on the evacuation patterns, all of them. All 22 species abandoned their homeworlds? More than that. They contacted species we hadn't even discovered yet. The archive shows evidence of communication with over 40 different civilizations, all coordinating their development to avoid council contact. Admiral Korth's face had gone pale. Are you saying there's a 40-species alliance arrayed against us? Not against us, Quental corrected. Independent of us. The archive makes it clear they don't want to fight the council. They just want to be left alone. And if we don't leave them alone? Quental activated one final file from the archive. Military planning documents appeared on the screen, showing defensive strategies and contingency plans. Then they're prepared for war, and based on their analysis of our capabilities, they believe they can win. Primitives believing they can defeat the council is nothing new, Korth said dismissively. These aren't primitives anymore, Admiral. They're a technologically advanced civilization that's spent 80 years studying our weaknesses. They know our ship designs, our battle tactics, our supply chains, our command structure. They know things about us that we've forgotten ourselves, such as the exact location of every council military base, the production capacity of every council shipyard, the loyalty index of every council member species. Quental paused. They know which of our allies are unhappy with council leadership. The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Veltar called for order. How is that possible? She demanded. 80 years of intercepted communications, systematic analysis, and patient intelligence gathering. They've built a complete picture of council civilization while remaining completely invisible to us. Until now. No, Quental said grimly. We still don't know where most of their colonies are. We don't know their total population or industrial capacity. We don't know their full technological capabilities. The data we captured represents what they were willing to let us find. Meaning they wanted us to have this information. This archive was too easily captured, too conveniently located. They're sending us a message. What message? Quental looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. That they know everything about us, and we know nothing about them. That they've been preparing for this confrontation for decades, while we've been completely unaware of their existence. And that if we push this to open conflict, they're ready. Admiral Korth stood up angrily. You're suggesting we negotiate with escaped primitives? I'm suggesting, Quental replied calmly, that they're not primitives anymore. and maybe they never were. High Counselor Veltar stared at the red emergency button on her desk. For 3 centuries, that button had represented the Council's ultimate authority. Press it and the full military might of the galaxy would mobilize to crush any threat to Council supremacy. But today, for the first time in her long life, she wasn't sure what would happen if she pressed it. "Ma'am," her aide announced, "Admiral Korth is here with the final assessment. Send him in." Admiral Korth entered her office looking like he had aged a decade in the past month. His usual confident bearing was gone, replaced by the weary posture of a military leader facing an impossible situation. "Admiral, your report?" Korth placed a data pad on her desk. "The situation is worse than we thought." "Much worse." "Explain." "We've confirmed the existence of 67 human colonies across 14 sectors, but that's not the concerning part." Korth activated the holographic display in her office. "These are the new discoveries." The galaxy map appeared, but now it was covered with new markings. Hundreds of systems showing industrial activity, communication networks and ship movements. "What am I looking at?" Veltar asked. "A new civilization. The humans didn't just evacuate their species and a few allies. They've been recruiting." Korth manipulated the display, highlighting different regions. 17 species we've never contacted. 23 species we classified as extinct or relocated. 41 species we didn't know existed. How many total? Current estimates suggest the Terran Cooperative Alliance includes over 80 species, with a combined population exceeding 2 trillion beings. Veltar felt her heart stop. 2 trillion? That's conservative. They've built colonies in regions we considered uninhabitable. Asteroid mining operations that process more raw materials than our top 10 industrial worlds combined. Shipyards that could outproduce our entire military construction program. And we never noticed? They specifically chose locations we ignored. Neutron star systems, black hole peripheries, supernova remnants, places where the resources are abundant. But the environmental hazards make colonization economically unfeasible using our technology. But not using theirs. Their technology is designed for hostile environments. They've turned the galaxy's worst neighborhoods into thriving colonies. Korth changed the display again. "This is what really concerns me." New data appeared showing ship movements and communication patterns. The scale was staggering. "They're not hiding anymore," Korth continued. "They're expanding openly, establishing trade routes, building infrastructure. They're acting like a legitimate galactic power." "Because they are one," Veltar said quietly. "Ma'am, Admiral, look at these numbers. 2 trillion beings, 80 species, colonies across 14 sectors. They're not rebels or refugees anymore. They're a civilization that rivals our own." Korth nodded grimly. "And they're still growing. Our intelligence suggests 3 more species are in negotiations to join their alliance." "Species under our jurisdiction?" "2 of them, yes." Veltar stood and walked to the window overlooking the Council Station's main docking bay. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went in an endless stream of commerce and diplomacy. For centuries, this had been the undisputed center of galactic civilization. "What are they offering these species that we aren't?" she asked. "Choice," Korth replied. "They don't require political submission or technological limitations. Species can maintain their independence while benefiting from alliance membership." "And our member species? How are they reacting to this development?" Korth's expression became even more troubled. 17 Council member species have formally requested reviews of their membership terms. 6 have established unauthorized diplomatic contact with the alliance. Unauthorized contact? Trade negotiations, cultural exchanges, technology sharing agreements, all outside official Council oversight. Veltar turned back to face him. "Are our own allies defecting?" "Not defecting. But they're exploring options. The alliance offers things we've never provided. Technological advancement without restrictions, colonial expansion without oversight, cultural preservation without interference. And if we order them to cease these unauthorized contacts, then we risk open rebellion." "Ma'am, several of our allies are militarily stronger than the human alliance was when they left Council space. If they choose to follow the human example, the implications hung in the air between them. The Council's authority had always been based on superior technology and overwhelming numbers. But if their own allies had access to human technology and decided they preferred independence, what about the emergency protocols?" Veltar asked. "Full military mobilization? Against what target?" "The Alliance colonies are scattered across a region larger than our current territory. They have no central capital, no critical infrastructure we could strike to force surrender, and their defensive capabilities are, what about them? Ma'am, we attempted a small-scale military probe of one of their outer colonies last week. 3 heavy cruisers against what appeared to be a lightly defended mining operation, and we lost all 3 ships. The mining operation wasn't lightly defended. It was a trap. They knew we were coming, knew our approach vectors, knew our weapons capabilities. They had prepared specific countermeasures for our exact ship configuration. Veltar sank back into her chair. How? They're still listening to our communications. Every order we send, every plan we make, every ship we deploy. They know about it before our own crews do. That's impossible. We've implemented new encryption protocols, which they helped design. Ma'am, remember that they've been monitoring our technical communications for 80 years. They understand our systems better than we do. Every encryption method we've developed, they've already cracked. Veltar looked at the emergency button again. So if I activate full military protocols, they'll know about it before the orders reach our fleets. They'll have time to prepare, to choose the time and place of engagement to ensure they fight us on their terms instead of ours. What do you recommend, Admiral? Korth was quiet for a long moment. Negotiation. Formal recognition of the Terran Cooperative Alliance as an independent galactic power. Establishment of diplomatic relations and mutual non-interference agreements. You're asking me to legitimize rebellion. I'm asking you to recognize reality. The Alliance isn't going away. They're too large, too advanced, and too well established, and they're offering our own member species an alternative that many find attractive. If we recognize them as equals, it undermines everything the Council represents. If we don't, we risk a war we can't win against an enemy we can't find, while our own allies question whether they want to stay loyal to us. Veltar stood and walked to her desk. The emergency button waited, red and ominous, representing 3 centuries of unquestioned authority. There's another option, she said quietly. Ma'am, we could learn from them, modify our own policies, offer our member species more autonomy, fewer restrictions, greater partnership instead of submission. Korth raised an eyebrow. That would mean fundamental changes to how the Council operates. Maybe fundamental changes are necessary. The humans succeeded because they offered something better than what we provided. Instead of fighting them, maybe we should ask ourselves, why so many species prefer their approach to ours? That would be unprecedented. So, was a species evacuating their entire civilization to avoid contact with us? Veltar moved her hand away from the emergency button. Admiral, prepare a diplomatic mission. I want to establish formal contact with the Alliance leadership. And our military posture? Defensive only. Make it clear we're not seeking conflict. She paused. And, Admiral, send the message through open channels. Let them intercept it along with everyone else. I want them to know we're sincere. Yes, ma'am. As Korth left, Veltar remained standing by her desk, looking at the button she had chosen not to press. For centuries, the Council had been the only option for galactic civilization. Now there was an alternative, and it was one that many species found more appealing. The humans had been right about one thing. The galaxy was large enough for multiple approaches to civilization. The question was whether the Council was wise enough to adapt to that new reality. Outside her window, ships continued their endless dance of commerce and diplomacy. But now some of those ships bore the star and circle emblem of the Terran Cooperative Alliance, and they were welcomed in Council space not as subjects, but as equals. The button remained unpressed. And perhaps, Veltar thought, that was the wisest decision she had ever made.